Notice Timothy Onwatuegu.
Yes, I did.
They came in. What happened that night? Nzogu was also a visitor.
Yes, he was.
You were left there crying.
Yes. Yes.
And you were taken out of the house with your brother.
Yes.
Dad was told about the coup.
Yes, he was.
He still traveled to Kaduna.
Yes, he did.
He knew there was going to be a coup.
Yes, he did.
So why did he travel?
Corruption? Really? Can you compare it to what we have now?
You were almost poisoned. Is it like being a single mother? What do you want President Tinubu to do for you? To do for the Ademulegun family?
And they rain the bullets. They rain the bullets. Blood everywhere.
It is the story of the Brigadier's daughter. What is the story about? The Brigadier's Daughter is the title of a book by Solape Ademulegun. Let's read from the book. On page 17, she tells a story of event, a story of time. Saturday, January 15th, 1966. The days seemed like every normal one, with the harmattan air and cold winds. And then night time came. I had contracted chickenpox a few days earlier, so on that night I slept with my parents. That was in their bedroom, face painted over with calamine lotion. I was fast asleep while my 4-year-old brother, the youngest of all 6 children my father had, was asleep in a nearby cot in the same room. Sholakbe continues her story. History records the time to be between 2 a.m. and 2:40 a.m. To me, as a child, it was the dead of night. I was awakened by noise. History lists 14 names of the soldiers that broke into our home and my parents' bedroom. It is the story of the Brigadier's daughter. I saw a multitude of soldiers while recognizing the leader of the gang as Major Timothy Onwatuegu, whom I called Uncle, him and Major Nzogu being regular visitors to our home and at our dining table. I recall my first question was, "Uncle, what are you doing here?" To which I got no response. Sholakbe says at this time, my mother, who was pregnant, history puts her pregnancy at being 8 months, was on her feet. My father, who was in his white underpants and singlet, was also sitting up on their bed. So what happened that night? Solape Ademulegun, it's good to have you on State Affairs.
Thank you for having me.
You have written a book entitled The Brigadier's Daughter. You noticed Timothy Onwatuegu.
Yes, I did.
They came in. What happened that night?
It is the story of a night that is still a nightmare in my head. So they came in, a bunch of soldiers with guns, Major Onwatuegu with them. They were talking to my father. As a 6-year-old, of course, I had no idea what they were talking about. History puts it that they were asking him for the keys to the armory. Since he was the commander of the 1st Division of the Nigerian Army, I guess the armory came under his garrison. They marched him out of the bedroom for a bit. I noticed my mother was talking and she was frantic. They marched him back. At a point, I noticed my father pulled the bedside drawer by the bed, because I was lying. At that point, I had rolled over to the edge to be able to see what was going on. History has it that he wanted to bring out his service pistol, rifle, whatever it's called. And the next thing I know, they cock their guns. My mother jumps in front of him with her arms, spread out like to protect him. And they rain the bullets. They rain the bullets. Blood everywhere. My mother was pregnant. It was more like they killed 3 people. Blood everywhere. Yeah. All over the floor, all over the walls.
We are talking about the January 15th, 1966 coup. This is the daughter of Brigadier Ademulegun, who was killed in that coup. You stood there watching.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
You saw Timothy Onwatuegu.
Yes, I did.
You knew him before that night.
Yes, I did.
He used to come to the house.
Yes, he did.
To do what?
Well, of course, my father was his commander. He would come. The army was one big happy family. At least up to that point, before that point. He would come. Sometimes they'd have lunch with us. I remember the dining room. The address was 1 Kashim Ibrahim, Street Road, Crescent in Kaduna. And it was the official quarters. And he was a regular visitor. Whether official or unofficial, he was on call.
Kaduna Zogu was also a visitor.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Kaduna was like the epicenter of that coup.
So history says.
Your mom jumped in between the gunmen and your dad.
Yes, she did.
You can still picture her?
Yes, I can. She was in a nightie. She was pregnant. So it was a loose gown. I think pink. And she stood there. Maybe she felt they would show some pity. I'm a woman. They would show some pity. They know me. They've come here. I've probably cooked for them before. Maybe she felt, because I'm pregnant, they would, whatever it was that she felt or was going on in her head, I don't know. But she stood there.
And they didn't feel pity for her?
No, absolutely not.
Did they tell her to give way and she refused?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
You think it was love?
It had to have been love. It had to have been. Because a woman has children, she has a husband, and at that moment, she's not thinking of her children. She wants to protect the one she loves. Yes, it had to have been love.
Is that good love?
I don't know. If the event were to repeat itself, or if I were to have been in her shoes, I don't know if I would have done that.
Would you have done that?
I don't know. But at a point like that, maybe the brain is not functioning well. Maybe one is not thinking straight. Maybe at that point all she was thinking was, you can't kill this man. You know what I mean? You can't kill this man. He's the love of my life. You can't kill this man. He's the father of my children. You can't kill this man. He's the father of, my father had 6 of us. I don't know. But I guess in that kind of situation, I don't think one's brain will function well.
Your father was one of the toppest of the military officers of the time.
So I hear.
After Bassi Ironsi, he was number 3.
Yes. Brigadier Bassi, by the way, was my godfather. And I had a wonderful relationship with him. And I still have with his children. And a year or 2 before he passed on, I went to cover an assignment in Akwa Ibom State, Uyo. where he lived after retirement, and he had become, pretty old. I went there. Oh, I'm so glad I did. He was so happy to see me. And I was so glad that I saw him at least that one last time. Because about a year or so later, I heard that he died. Yeah. He was pretty close to Brigadier Bassi.
After the coup struck, you were left there crying.
Yes. Yes.
And you were taken out of the house with your brother.
Yes. I had an older brother who was on holidays from school, who was there, but he was not in that room. He was in his room across the landing, the other side of the staircase. He had heard the gunshots. His name is Bankole. We lost him about a year ago. I miss him so much. Anyways, he had heard the gunshots and he peeped. He knew he couldn't go in, like 6, 7, 8 soldiers. I don't remember the number. So he went back to his room. So when they had finished, their deed, he came in and took my younger brother and I through the night, through the dark, into the boys' quarters until help came.
Your younger brother was 4 at the time?
Yes. Yes.
Help came?
Yes.
What kind of help?
Well, I think it was Mrs. Ironsi, actually, who came to collect us the next morning from the boys' quarters. And then we were taken to an orphanage in Kaduna, Queen Amina Orphanage, which was run by the Catholic missionaries. I think it was Mrs. Ironsi.
Have you asked yourself how they gained entrance into the house? That was the top brigadier in the north.
And we had guards at the gates.
Have you reflected on that?
Yeah. Maybe that's what they call compromise, right? Or the guards were other ranks. Corporals, lance corporals, and so on. The people who came, the guy who led the team was a major. Would he say to them, open the gate, and they won't? No, they will.
You also saw Saudana of Sokoto and Madu Bello while growing up?
Yeah, a few times. Yeah, I would go with my dad. I remember in the Sadauna's palace, we would sit on the floor. And it was really something different, and it was nice. And that's where I learned to eat masa. I think it was, during my mom was Muslim. So, sometimes during the fasting period, would go visit the Sadauna. Yes, I knew him.
Can you still remember his personality?
No. I know he used to wear white a lot. He used to cover his head. And even when he wore shoes, it was white. Really nice man.
What was the compound like?
Very large. We would first drive in, like half a kilometer, a whole kilometer, and then another gate, and then in again. Yeah, it was very big.
You talked about people around the Saudana. You mentioned the Marjories.
Oh, yeah. I said there's a long drive in.
Yeah.
So we would find people sitting around there like beggars, people praying, So left and right, there'd be people sitting as we drove in. He used to feed them. He was a kind man. He used to feed them.
In this story, Colonel Shodende's wife keeps coming in.
Yes.
While the Kupis were in your house.
Yes.
She tried reaching your family through the phone.
Yes.
It was too late.
Yes. They had apparently gone to their house. So she tried to warn maybe my mom, I don't know. She kept calling. Those old analog phones? The black ones that sit on, it was downstairs. But it was too late.
Her husband had been killed by this time.
I believe so. Otherwise, or maybe they had just come in. I'm not sure. I'm sure he would have been killed. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to call. But she kept calling to warn us. But it was too. I met her years after. And we talked about it.
What did she tell you?
Same old. They came, killed him. I think they hurt her arm. And she showed me the point where the bullet went through. I haven't heard from her in many years now. I don't know if she's still alive.
Your dad was told about the coup.
Yes, he was.
He still traveled to Kaduna.
Yes, he did.
He knew there was going to be a coup.
Yes, he did.
So why did he travel?
General Olutoye, who is like a father to us, told me that my father knew, maybe intelligence reports, maybe whatever you call it, but he wanted to protect his family. He didn't want to be seen as the coward who knew that something was going to happen and then he stayed back, stayed away, and then put his family in danger.
But he eventually put his family in danger.
Well, we're still alive, aren't we?
Your mom is no more.
Well, maybe that's how it was destined to be.
You grew up as an orphan.
Yes, I did.
What was it like growing up?
Oh, that's a whole page.
Tell me about the orphanage.
At the orphanage, we were there for a very short period. It was run by the Catholic nuns. There was a particular nun, I've forgotten her name. She was very young, maybe in her 20s, European. She was really nice. I kept asking when my mom and dad would come back for me. I kept thinking, okay, so they're sleeping. Okay, yes, there were guns and all that, but they're going to wake up. I kept disturbing her. I didn't want to be there. I shouldn't be here. When are they coming for me? One day, she took me to a burial ground within the orphanage grounds. Apparently, there was one there. She showed me tombs of dead people. Told me that people who were in those tombs had gone to be with Jesus and would never come back. I didn't understand it. Okay, so if they've gone to be with Jesus, after the visit is over, they'll come back. But she kept putting that into my head. Okay. We were there for a short period. They treated us well, until the army reached out to the family and moved us to Zaria, to Dr. and Mrs. Oshodi, who were very close to my parents.
Then from Zaria?
While we were in Zaria, the army was making inquiries on all with family members back in Lagos. So they had reached out to my mom's family and my dad's family. My father's younger brother, Johnson Modupe Ademulegun, he's passed on now, was in the police force, Nigerian police force. So they reached out to him eventually. So he came to Zaria to pick us up. We traveled by train to Lagos. I'd never been on a train. I remember those years traveling abroad was BOAC, British Overseas Airways Corporation, and then there was Nigeria Airways. So on the train, it was a long journey. I didn't sleep. I didn't close my eyes. At every station, Kotangora, Mina, I would peep through the window, see the people selling and peddling things on their heads, hawking. And I would just be wondering, where am I going? Where is this? Why are we? My brother, he was young. He was asleep most of the time. So was my uncle. I couldn't sleep. I was just wondering, I'm leaving behind my mom and dad? Okay, take me back there. I know they were lying helpless, lifeless, but they're still my mom and dad. Yeah. So we came to Lagos.
How did you remember all this?
I don't know. And that's the problem. It's refused to go away. If I meet someone today, and in 3 months' time, the person comes and says, "Oh, mommy, how are you? Ma, remember me?" Honestly, I won't remember the person. I would need my PA at work to remind me, nudge me. Even when they do, sometimes I don't remember. But the events of that night, and the years after are locked in my brain. In 2016, I had a brain seizure. I woke up in a coma. And one of the effects my doctor said was, "Oh, a part of your brain may have been damaged. You will forget things." Oh, yeah, I did. Forget quite a few things. Somebody reminds me, "Oh, don't you remember we went to this person's wedding together?" Really, I did. But the events of that night are still there. The brain seizure didn't go anywhere near it.
Life was beautiful before the coup struck.
Yes, life was beautiful. I used to ride on horses. The army then, it was about horses. My father had a horse. His name was Santana. When the Volkswagen Santana came, he used to remind me of the horse called Santana. Would ride within the compound, large grounds. I went to school. Army, it wasn't Army Children's School. I can't remember. Army something school in Kaduna. I have my old reports. I should have brought them. I didn't. You know? And life was awesome. We had Baba Dogo. I remember his name. He was the batsman who polished my father's army shoes, his boots. Life was beautiful.
At some point, your father took you to London.
Oh, many points.
Many points.
I think he served in the UK at some point.
He served the Queen.
Yes, he did. Before independence, he was the commander of the Queen's Regiment in Nigeria. And I think after, he also did something in the UK. And I went to school there, House on the Hill, Hampstead. I have a photograph in the book that I think it was a class portrait. Yeah.
Even at some point, Ademulegun, Ironsi, Babafemi Ogundikwe competed for who would be the head of the army after the Europeans left the scene.
Yeah.
But Ironsi was the lucky one.
Yes, he was. I still have a fantastic relation with the Ogundikwes too. One of the older daughters, Mrs. Folola Brahima Ademuyewoni Ogundikwe, is my big sister. We communicate, she loves me, and yeah. Still my relation.
So, on the train to Lagos, you got to Lagos.
Yes. My uncle lived in police barracks or Balinde. You know what that looked like? Small, what they call room and parlor now. And he had his own family. We were only with him, I think, 2 days. The army had contacted a very close friend and cousin of my dad, Chief Dr. Sende Akinshete, one of the first ophthalmologists in Nigeria. His wife was a nurse. She was my mom's friend. My mom was a nurse, by the way. So she studied in Stub Hill, Glasgow. So she and Mrs. Akinshete, Mrs. Omomi Akinshete, she's passed on too, were very close. So they had accepted to take us in. They lived in Ikoyi then, Roxton Road, Ilabere Avenue. I think those names have been changed. So we were taken there. I remember the first day, I had my toy, a little duck. The picture is in that book. I was so attached to this duck. You know how it felt like, okay, so I've left my mom and dad behind, right? But I have my duck. Bakpeye in Yoruba. So I held on to the duck. They took us there. And at the point of getting in, their little girl, who's my baby sister now, looked at my duck and wanted to pull it off me. Oh, I must have been very violent. Give me my duck back. That was all I had. So they took us in and they were awesome. I was happy at last. I had 4 sisters. And my brother, was the only boy within because they had all girls. I still have a beautiful relationship with Daddy Akinshete, who is still alive at 96 or 97 and strong. Mommy has passed on, and the daughters too are still my sisters. We were with them very short period again.
The program is State Affairs. Solape Ademulegun is on State Affairs. This is her book, The Brigadier's Daughter. You would like to read this book at some point. Incisive story. Heartbreaking too. Solape Ademulegun is on State Affairs. She is the author of The Brigadier's Daughter. A concise story on what happened to her dad on the 15th of January, 1966. It is about the coup we've been talking about. But here is an eyewitness account of the bloody coup of that era. So at some point, your uncle had to take charge, Uncle Bashir. Your mom had a house in Lagos.
Yes, she did.
Tell us the story.
So remember I said that we were with the Akinshetes? At that point, my maternal grandmother began to clamor. Oh, she wants her grandchildren. They would look after us and all that. So, because, at that point, they probably saw the Akinshetes as my paternal side, since they're from Ondo also. So it was agreed. The army came back, moved us again, gave my uncle Bashiru the keys to my mother's little bungalow in Oshodi, off Agege Motor Road in Lagos, and handed us over to him, my younger brother Goki and I. They had just established Army Children's School and Barracks Yaba. Here it's now called Command Children's School. So we were registered there. The school bus, the army bus, would come all the way from Yaba to Oshodi. That would be his last stop, and pick us up to school and bring us back. So we moved in with Uncle Bashir and his family. At that time, he had just 2 children. He ended up with, how many? Yomi, the 2 girls. He ended up with 5. But at that time, he had 2, and there was 2 of us, my brother and I, moved on with him. But it was a couple of years of nightmare.
Nightmare.
It's nightmare.
You were almost poisoned.
Yes, I was. They had a houseboy called Bassi. And one day, for some reason, Bassi gave me food without soup. I think it was eba or fufu, I can't remember. But since that time, eba and fufu, my enemies, I don't go near eba and fufu. It just reminds me, it takes me back to that.
To now?
Yes, you won't see me near it. So, Bassi gave me food. He didn't give me soup. My cousins and my younger brother were playing outside the house. Very close window, playing football. I had done some housework, and then that was why I didn't eat at the same time my cousins and my brother ate. So I sat down and wondered why I had no soup. And then he took like a cane, a whip, and asked me to start eating. I began to eat and I began to throw up.
How old were you?
7 maybe. I began to eat and I began to throw up. As I was throwing up, Bassi was asking me to pack it up again and eat it. I sat on the floor.
Where was your uncle?
He had gone to work. He was working with Drum Publications at the time, the magazine. His wife too was working somewhere, I can't remember. They had both gone to work. I still feel that my mother's spirit. Oh, I'm supposed to be a born-again Christian, right? I'm not supposed to believe in spirits after the death. But I still believe by some reason my mother's spirit was there. Why was I throwing it up? Why wasn't I swallowing the poison? Why didn't I die? So as I was eating and throwing up, he was beating me. I was getting weak. At some point, he took off his trousers. Wanted to have me. I was 7. And then I screamed with my last energy. Luckily, my cousins and my brother were peeping through the window, wanting to come in to use the restroom. That was what saved me.
You were in the restroom?
No. They wanted to come into the house
to
use the restroom. So, like I said, I was sitting on the floor by a passage near the same window where, that looked outside where they were playing. So they came in and Bassi pulled up his trousers. There was an old man in the next house. He's dead now. Alaji Alfa. My younger brother saw me, ran to the next house to report to the old man. My younger brother was, if I was 7, then he was 5. Alfa came and they took me. There were no phones, no phone calls. They waited. The Alfa knew my mother's second brother. My mother had 2 brothers. There were 3 of them. My mom, the first, Uncle Latif, the second, Uncle Bashir, who we lived with, the third. So he reached out to Uncle Latif. The next day, Uncle Latif came. No, that same day. Took me away. We had other uncles, cousins of my mom. Mr. Obisheson, he worked with Lever Brothers. He was a top manager with Lever Brothers. And a few other Alaji this and Alaji that, my mom's cousins. Like I said, my mom was Muslim. And they called Bassi. My uncle called his wife. Bassi, why did you give her food without soup? Why did you? Bassi said, my uncle's wife had given him some substance to put in my food, to eat. Substance, poison. And that he just felt, well, if I was going to die anyway, what was the harm in having what he wanted to have with me? Of course, my uncle's wife denied it. My uncle denied it. Well, at that point, it was decided by the family that we be moved away from Uncle Bashiru in my mother's house to Uncle Latif, my mom's second brother. Uncle Latif had lived in London. I don't know if deportation was the in thing at the time, but he came back. And he didn't have like a high-collared job or anything, but he had love. He lived in Abule Oja in the Yaba area of Lagos in one room, but we found love with him. So my younger brother and I were moved to him. He wasn't married then, but he had a woman he was seeing. He said he just went to her and said, Betty, will you marry me for the sake of my sister's children so that you can help me look after them? She married him. She was from Delta State, half caste actually, half Oyinbo, half Delta. She married him and we moved in with them. They had just one bed, one room. They slept on the floor while my brother and I took their bed. So that was round where? Round 3, 4, where we lived, 5? The count still goes on.
Traumatic moments.
Yes.
Do you still feel the trauma?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. I loved him. And when he died, I gave him a hero's burial. Before he died, he had had children in the UK and he had lost contact with them. Like I said, he came home. I took him back to the UK a bunch of times to try and look for his family. Well, we never found them. Maybe they didn't even bear his surname because he had left a long time ago. He had 3 children. Well, we couldn't find them. He died. But before he died, I had grown up. And living with him, after a few years, it was time to go to secondary school. I got admitted into 2 schools in Lagos, 1 in Ibadan. I chose to come to Ibadan to be away from everything.
Yejide Grammar School?
Yes, Yejide Girls Grammar School, to be away from everything. So I was in boarding house. Luckily, all the principals knew me, knew my story. Mrs. Omishade, whose husband, I guess, was a politician, Chief Michael Omishade. Mrs. Onitiri, Mrs. Adebekun, the various principals at different times. They loved me. But you see, I was a disturbed child. I was not mentally disturbed, but I was an unhappy child. Opening days, visiting days, nobody would really visit me. Sometimes, yes, my uncle would come from Lagos, but not all the time. I thank General Olufemi Olutoye and his late wife, Professor Olori Omotayo Olutoye, for the part they played in my life at that point. They used to call them federal commissioners then, minister, right? They call them ministers now. On days when they came to visit me in Yejide on visiting day, I would be like walking on the moon. Oh boy, with the soldiers driving the car and me, I had this visitor. I'd be so happy I'll be walking on air because people hardly visited me.
The army never abandoned you.
No, they didn't.
The army took you to school.
Yes, primary school, secondary school, up until end of first degree. Although they didn't continue mine in when I left America, but it was okay. Ondo State government also gave us some buffers, yes. Because I didn't tell them the problem I had with the lecturer, so but it's okay. They did very well.
What happened to Uncle Bashir?
He died. Eventually, they denied it, like I said. Basi I don't know if he was sent to jail or sent away. But Uncle Bashiru continued to live in my mom's house with his wife. He had more children. He ended up with 5. So, over a decade down the line, I got my lawyer to write him a letter. I was almost done in university, or I think I was done, and I needed to use the place. I had dreams to establish a school and to give scholarships in my mother and father's name to indigent but brilliant children, which I still do. So I asked my lawyer to write him a letter to leave the house. I gave him a year, a notice of a year. You know all those wooden furnitures my mom had put there? I said, you can take everything. but just leave the house. Oh, his children still hold that against me. It's my mother's house. I had a right to do that. So he left. A few years later, he died. His children were young. I got involved. Like I said, Muslim, we had to bury him same day. Yeah, I played my part as a dutiful niece. But that was it. His wife lived a couple of years after him.
The story you wrote in your book, he didn't treat you well.
No, he didn't.
I'm wondering why he didn't.
You know, come to think of it, let me digress a little. In Colonel Banjo's, one of his letters, Colonel Victor Banjo, one of his letters, he mentioned us. I don't remember the page, 174, 172, I don't remember. In one of his letters to his wife when he was in incarceration, he said, I wonder what is happening to the children of my friend, Brigadier Sam. That's how he referred to my dad. I hope that when I get out, if I get out, I will be able to look for them and take care of them so that, life can be a little easy on them. You know how human beings can be. He said that. So, Uncle Bashiru, there's a picture in my book that was taken in London. Uncle Bashiru and his wife, my mom, made sure he got to London, maybe when my dad was serving, I don't know. And Uncle Bashiru held me in the picture. It's in the book. Oh, I was the favorite niece. What happened after my mother died?
What happened to him?
I don't know. I became the house girl. I did all the work in the house.
That is the pain of being an orphan.
Yes. Even from blood.
You kept remembering your mom and dad?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Were you helpless?
You could say that. He used to beat us a lot. We used to have moments of solace during the holidays. Mrs. Olutoye, her children too attended Army Children's School, the Basis Army Children's School, Babatolas, Oluleyes, they're all still my friends. General Akiola's children, name them, Fajobis, they're all still my friends. Now, during the holidays, these people would have agreed amongst themselves who would come and pick us to spend the holidays with them. At least we'll be out of. Mrs. Olutoye would come. I remember the Army Land Rover would bring her. My uncle would disappear, especially when he sees the Army Land Rover outside the compound. He would go for hours. Mrs. Olutoye won't go. She will not leave. And then my uncle would come back. Oh, Mrs. Olutoye said, I came to collect the children so they could spend holidays with us. And then my uncle said, okay. He would call me into the bedroom, like to pack our stuff. And then he would twist my ears. Twist it, rub it first. It would be very hot. Then twist and pull me up with my two ears. I won't make a sound. You know why? Twist my ears all you like. I'm going. At least I'll be away for a couple of weeks. Oh, yeah.
Did you ask him when you grew up why those tortures?
No.
Why didn't you ask him?
You know what? I think God dealt with him in his own way. I won't go into that.
How did your younger brother feel? Was he also dealt with?
I think it was a little easier on him because he was a boy and my uncle's children were boys. It was a little easier. And he was very young. He didn't have any memories. He didn't remember much, you understand? So he probably wasn't a threat to them. I remembered a lot. So I was a threat. You know, I have a feeling that if things had gone on the way they were, he probably would have inherited the house, probably sold it. That's where my school is today, in honor of my mother. Yes.
Do you read books on the coup?
I did a few for a while. The five majors, I guess that's the only one I read. Because some of the information is really not true. In one of the books I read that my father was accused of fraternizing with the politicians. How do you say you are commander of one brigade in Kaduna and there's a Sardauna, there's a prime minister, this, and you don't have a relationship with them? How? How? So they were probably accused of being corrupt, and I laugh when I think of that corruption. My father had what? 2 houses. One in Ikoyi that everybody else had. What's the road now? I've forgotten. General Gowon lives there now. Chief Akintola had one there too, so it must have been what they gave out to all of them and took out from their salaries. He had another one in Surulere. My uncle sold it a while ago. That was it. My mother had her house even before she married my father. She had the Oshodi land before she married my father.
And I've also read...
Corruption? Really? Can you compare it to what we have now?
They said your dad was very political.
So they said.
They had connections in the political circle. Even in the book he runs it was mentioned.
But was that wrong? Should he have been the enemies of the people in power? Do you understand? Should he have been the enemy? Isn't that how governance work? Hand in hand, together, to make things better? If they said that about him then, what will they say about others now? A big question.
Do you feel that coup was called for?
No, it wasn't.
It
was not called for. They just shed innocent blood. They just one of the Sardauna's wives was killed. Why? Was she their target?
I think she did what your mom did.
Yeah, she stood in front of her husband too, and she was one of many wives.
Yeah.
You know, Hafsatu, I think, I can't remember her first name. Why shed innocent blood?
Do you feel that coup was the beginning of the Nigerian crisis?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I don't think we ever got over that. One thing led to the other. There was the counter coup after that. And then the civil war. And then a bunch of military takeovers after. Brought us to where we are today. We're still trying to work on democracy.
You feel your father has been given his due respect?
No, he has not. Recently, before President Buhari left power, he named airports after a few people, heroes. My father never got recognized. Someone actually laughed over it, and I felt pained.
Who laughed over it?
Oh, somebody who comes from my state and my town. Oh, Daddy didn't even get it. I said, okay, it's okay.
We have been honored in Ondo.
Yes. The longest road in Ondo town was named after him. A cenotaph of him standing in military uniform was erected. A road was named after him in Abuja too. We were not even aware. Someone just, a couple of years ago told us. They even missed the spelling of his middle name. His Adeshujo. They first put Adesoji, and then I think one of my brothers, I noticed it, and then they corrected it. So somewhere in the central business district in Abuja is Samuel Ademulegun Avenue. But that's not enough.
What else do you want?
Now, there still needs to be some form of compensation. This affected us terribly. I know that some of our colleagues whose fathers were killed but who had mothers made it to some point. I know in Nigeria sometimes, your father was good, he served and this. Okay, so you, first son, come. We'll groom you. And then you get a political appointment, get this, get that. Some, I won't mention names, but some of the children of those who were killed in that coup had mothers to fight for them, to go to whoever they needed to go to. We didn't. I keep describing myself like a goat without a head, a headless goat. It will just hit a tree and move back again, hit something else and move back again. So I don't think enough has been done. Recently, I read that President Tinubu His Excellency President Tinubu approved some insurance policy of 18 billion naira to families of fallen heroes. I wrote a few newspaper articles in different newspapers, The Sun, Punch. It was online, thanking him and asking him to remember the children of the original fallen heroes. At some point, I wrote a letter to the Chief of Army Staff. It was delivered. It was acknowledged. The copy was acknowledged. And then a journalist friend of mine who did the delivery of the letter, and I said, "Oh, I don't think you guys are included. It's for the Boko Haram fallen heroes." I said, some heroes laid down their lives, made sacrifices for this nation before the insurgent ones. How do you say it doesn't include us? It doesn't include the children of the fallen heroes. Of course, we didn't hear anything anymore. And that's me.
One of your brother was in the Air Force.
Yes, he was our firstborn.
Uh-huh. Was that not a form of compensation?
Well, if you say that, except you now look at the fact that he was retired as a group captain, he never even made Air Commodore, let alone Air Vice Marshal.
Where was he retired?
I don't know. He was the airport commander at the Nigerian local airport. I think that was his last big assignment. He was retired.
How are the Ademulegun boys?
Oh, they're doing okay. We've lost 3. There's just 3 of us left.
You're the only girl.
Yes, I am the only girl. My daddy's baby.
What do you want President Tinubu to do for you? To do for the Ademulegun family?
President Tinubu is a very wise man. I know that if he hears about this, he will look into it. Incidentally, my mother being from Lagos State in some way is linked to the Tinubu family. My grandmother was Miss Ekemode, and President Tinubu's first cousin is Dr. Ekemode on the mother's side. So there's a link. I'm sure President Tinubu would have heard about my mom. In her days, they called her Sisi Nurse or Sisi Koge. Koge meaning the one who does yanga, you know. President Tinubu can help us, compensate us, asking. Like I said, there's just 3 of us left. My immediate older brother, Benga, myself, and my younger brother who lives in the US. It could be some political appointment. It could be some compensation. Okay, take you guys. So that in old age, we're all getting old. At least you have a buffer. I'm going to be 65 this year. My immediate older brother, we're not same mom, is already 65, heading 66. My younger brother is 63. We're getting old. So even if there's no space at the top or somewhere in between, give us a buffer so that we know that our father was respected and constantly remembered.
But some would say that the army never failed the family. The army took care of the children till graduation.
Yeah. Is that enough? Did they take care of the trauma?
The trauma.
Did they take care of the trauma?
What did the trauma do to you?
Oh, lots of things. First of all, I went into a wrong marriage. And I kept telling myself, if I had parents, would I have even met this guy? No. Our paths would never have crossed.
How did the trauma lead you into a failed marriage?
I just wanted a home. I just wanted to have my own home, my own family, stop living with people.
So you were ready to move in with any man?
Yes. And then I found this one who seemingly wanted me. Didn't quite work out. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe because of the loss of my parents and the loss of love, I wanted too much love, which nobody could give me. Maybe, maybe not.
Too much
Or
love.
maybe the man felt, after all, you have no parents, and treated me the way he did, not too nicely. Maybe.
Did you treat him nicely?
I think I did. I think I loved him to a fault. I think after a while, I realized I wasn't getting anything out of this. I pulled out. I pulled out. I had two wonderful children.
Your best friends.
Oh, my best friends, the loves of my life.
And you shower them with love.
Yeah, and my grandchildren. Oh boy. I have twin grandsons. I love them to bits. I spend time with them every now and then, and they're the best times of my life. So something good came out of it. Even if it didn't, the relationship itself didn't last for life.
So your trauma affected your ability to have a successful relationship.
Yeah, even up till now, love is not something I know much about. Funny enough, I love my children. I love my grandchildren, but that's it. It's a different kind of love.
You were admitted into Ahmadu Bello University.
Yes, I was.
You did not graduate from Ahmadu Bello University.
No, I didn't.
Was it because of the trauma?
No. I had a problem with a lecturer, and it was common in those years. I wasn't ready to compromise. So I failed his course, English 206, European literature. Who fails European literature? Even if I rewrite the whole story of Macbeth, I will pass. It will just be a D or an E. And in those years, there were no semester systems. It was, a yearly thing. For 3 years, you get a degree. You fail a course, you repeat the whole year. So I was to repeat year 2. I felt embarrassed. Repeat? What did I do? The lecturer had, made advances, and I said no. And
did you report to the lecturer?
I did. But no, I thought nobody was doing anything about it. So I left, packed my things, and went to the US.
Before you left, did you react?
Yeah, a few friends and I went and, went to his house, made a bit of noise,
What kind of noise?
You don't want to hear that. I just went shouting, why did you do this to me? My friends went with me. I think we threw a few stones on his car, broke his car windscreen. Yeah, I was young.
Were you rascally?
No, I don't think I was rascally. I was actually very religious.
Was that not a rascally behavior?
Yeah, you could be seen as that, but he was making me lose 1 year. He deserved every rascality.
Broke his windscreen.
Yes, I did. Peugeot 404.
Was he home?
No, he wasn't. And then we ran away. But, of course, he knew that we did it. But I reported to the Faculty of Arts because I was reading English, BA English. And I left. I had a US visa, I had UK visa. So
you abandoned school?
Yes.
And you went to the United States?
Yes, I did.
To do what?
On getting to the US, I applied for admission to Texas Southern University in Houston. My brother was in Houston. My younger brother at that point had started living in the US as a US citizen. And I thought, okay, I could just tell them, I was in year 2, and they would admit me. Of course, that didn't work. They wanted my transcripts, which they probably wouldn't even have accepted because it wouldn't be the same curriculum. So I realized, start all over? How would I fund that? The Army won't pay that because I had just 1 year left to go on their records. So after, 3, 4, 6 months, I came back. Went to the University of Sokoto, wanting to finish that degree. I was determined to finish that degree. So they said, okay, apply for your transcripts to be sent. I applied to ABU. Lo and behold, the new Vice Chancellor of the University of Sokoto, Professor Mahdi Adamu, who was the Dean of Arts in ABU when this incident happened, said, when he saw me, he said, we've been looking for you, Miss Ademulegun. Where did you go? That after I left, the same lecturer did the same thing to quite a few other female students. And they reported they had gotten someone else to remark our papers, and they realized that I actually passed. But they couldn't find me. Well, so I lost over a year. They admitted me in Sokoto, accepted my transcripts. I spent 1 year and 1 extra semester there to make up, what I had lost, and I got my degree.
And you did your youth service in Benin?
Yes, I did.
You worked with the champion?
Yes, I did.
You were a journalist?
Yes, I was.
You enjoyed journalism?
Oh, yes, I did, and I still do. I do.
So why did you leave the champion newspaper?
I always had dreams of opening a school. While I was in Champion, I interviewed many personalities. In fact, I used to get the contacts, and then my entire features and news team would all go together. I have some of the pictures of when we went to interview General Obasanjo in my book. Chief Duro Nobule, who was, I think, the press secretary to the president then, introduced me to Prince Odukomaya, the MD of Champion then, and I got the job on the features desk. I interviewed lots of people. Mrs. Mariam Abacha. I was a welcome visitor in the Abacha home. I'd go and have lunch with them. I would see. Then General Abacha was chief of army staff, not when he was president. And they lived in Flagstaff House in Ikoyi, I think. I interviewed many kings, many royals, General Obasanjo, top people. But deep down, it wasn't what I wanted to be. I wanted a school. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to look after orphans. I'm a patron of the Little Saints Orphanage in Lagos, which belongs to the daughter of late General Ugbemudia, Reverend Mrs. Dele George. I'm one of their patrons. I also anchor their programs. I like to be an MC, pro bono. I'm sure you can tell from the way I speak.
Yes.
So I wanted to open a school. It had always been my dream to eulogize, to make my mother's name last forever in the lives of children who are brilliant but indigent, offer scholarships. So, while I was in Champion, I took a postgraduate diploma program in the University of Lagos in educational administration. Because I had flexible hours as a journalist, I was expected to go get my stories together and then come back to work later in the day and put my story together. So I took the course part-time. Finished it in 1 year, got the postgraduate diploma. And then I joined Champion in 1988, and then in 1992, I resigned and started with an after-school program. In fact, one of my very first students was the daughter of my MD in Champion, Prince Odukomaya. His daughter, she lives in the US now, and she's still one of my non-biological daughters. I still have a relationship with her.
Can you tell me about Abacha?
I don't know much about him. He just used to say hello at the dining table, and that was it. His wife was a very pleasant woman. She was a very pleasant woman.
Why did you write this book, The Brigadier's Daughter?
I wanted to let everything out. I wanted to free my mind. The story, the picture of that night was bothering me, even as an adult. I couldn't trust anybody. Trust was a big issue. It still is. I needed to get it all out. And I knew that in a couple of years, who knows whether I would have Alzheimer's, who knows what I will have, and I will forget. I didn't want to forget. But most importantly, my children never met my mom. I wanted my children to know the great, strong Amazon their grandmother was. The bold Amazon their grandmother was. And I wanted my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and many generations to come to read this book and be proud of their maternal ancestral lineage.
She bit the bullet.
Yes, she did.
She bit that bullet and her blood splashed over.
Yes. In fact, years after, I think it was General Jemi Benwon who was speaking to me. I can't remember.
Yeah.
He lived in that house too. And he said the blood stains never went away. They would screed, they would paint. And months after, the portion would start getting brown again.
That was a woman who wanted to defend her man.
Yes, yes.
And giving her life for her man was
Yes,
worth it.
She did.
And you have written a book telling that story.
Yes, I have. I miss them. I wish they lived a little longer. I wish they lived a little longer. I wish they did. I probably, like I said, I probably wouldn't have made some of the mistakes I made in life, especially marriage. But I have no regrets. I made up my mind that what my parents didn't give me, I would give my girls. As mom and dad put together, because, yeah, my ex-husband died a few years ago, so, but even before then, I mean, it was just me and the girls. And I decided that they would not miss anything. I gave up my all. I worked very hard as a single parent to give them the best. They went to universities abroad. I made sure I never owed fees for one semester. I worked so hard. Not just the school. I introduced tours, international tours. I wrote to the German embassy, wrote to the British High Commission, wrote to the Canadian High Commission. I am so and so and so. Sent all my visas, all visas. I want to start running international tours, educational tours for children. Children in my school probably may not be able to afford it. Then I used to do one free. The best overall pupil will go free to wherever we were going. But children from different schools will come under the umbrella of my school. Oh yeah, they wrote back. They were very good to me. They knew me. The heads of consulars and all at these various embassies. And year in, year out, I would take children in and out, come back with them, say thank you, give a report, show, return boarding pass stubs of every child that I took and brought back. That helped me. It helped my finances. I was able, with all that, to send the children, to give them the best education.
You are a strong woman.
People say so. I have my weak points, like everyone else. I cry sometimes. I look back and I cry. But I guess it's okay to cry.
Yeah, it's okay to cry.
It's okay. It's okay.
What is it like? What was it like being, what is it like being a single mother?
I think for me it was okay.
Okay.
It may not be the same story for others. Because after I left my husband, I was only with him for 7 years in my entire life. So what that means is that from my 30s, I've been alone.
But the girls were in constant touch with your dad?
Yeah, not really. Not really.
So you were the mom and the dad?
Yes, I was.
And you succeeded?
Yes, I did, to the glory of God. I couldn't have done it alone. To the glory of God.
So do you have some words for single mothers listening to you?
Society has changed. I think some women feel that they can't do without men. So I won't say everybody will toe my line. I decided that there was going to be no man anymore. My children would be my priority. Sometimes I would take 4 tours in a year, back to back. One summer to London, we're back. Same summer to Canada, we're back. Easter to Germany, we're back. Christmas to Canada, where there's snow. Children will see snow for the first time, we're back. Back to back. And the girls, I never owed on their fees. I told God, I made a covenant with God. See me through this. I want to take on something that is larger than me. I want to send 2 children to universities in America within 1 year of each other. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but you have to help me. Don't forget that at that time, the school was just an after-school program. Lesson. They would come from their various schools. We'll pick them up with my school bus. Grace Children's School, Corona School, Bagada, where my girls were then. Queen's College, Yaba, schools around the neighborhood. And we would do after-school coaching and all that. They would have lunch and then their parents would pick them up in the evenings. So I made a covenant with God. God, do this for me. And I will do this in return. I'm not going to tell you the covenant I made with God. But I kept my part and God kept his part. So for single mothers who feel they need a man, well, they should do it right. Go with your eyes wide open. If you're doing it a second time, you can't afford to make the mistake a second time. They say once bitten, twice shy. Do it with both eyes open and do it with God. He's the only one who never fails. But I decided no more. In fact, I got to a point, if any man got too close and started talking, I will change. You will see my countenance change. So they will keep their distance. And I have no regrets. My children have done well. They're looking after me. I love them. They love me. I feel I feel so honored and so blessed.
In recent time, I've seen you with the daughter of Victor Banjo, Professor
Yes.
Omigbodun.
Yes.
And I have seen you with the daughter of Faji.
Yes.
What is it about?
The daughter of Fajri came to Army Children's School also. She also came to Yejide. So since childhood, Desola and I, she actually has a younger sister called Solape also. So we've been close, since childhood. We both of us went to Abuja recently, and we spoke to a few people. Hopefully, they'll be able to get us an appointment to see His Excellency the President. Well, they've told us to hold on. They would see what they can do. We spoke to one minister and a few people. After that was the NLC strike and a whole bunch of things happened. So I guess, it put a hold on things. But we're still hoping. We're still hopeful. Desola and I. The daughter of Colonel Banjo too. Many years ago when I was in secondary school in Ibadan, them and their mom looked for me. They found me. They came to look for me. And it was a beautiful day for me, because, like I said, their father had put us in his letters. The book is Sequence, or what's it called? Yes, Sequence to my wife.
A gift of sequence.
A gift of sequence, yes. So after that, we lost contact again, myself and the Banjos. I kept wondering where they were. Lo and behold, one day, I just got a call. I was so excited. And we just hook up again together. And we've been together, trying to tell our story, trying to put the truth before Nigerians. I mean, trying to vindicate our fathers.
Banjo gone, Faji gone, Ademulegun gone. And their girls are out talking about them. Have three of you sat down to reflect deeply on their past and see how the girls can champion a brighter future for even younger girls who need inspiration? Are you mentoring younger persons?
I believe we are in our own different ways. Colonel Banjo's daughter is a professor of psychiatry, right?
Yeah.
She is doing a great job with young people, even old people. Like I said, I'm involved with an orphanage that belongs to Reverend Dele George, who is the daughter of the late General Wimudia. And yes, I mentor too. I have a particular girl there that was dropped in that orphanage when she was 4 months old. She just graduated from university now. I think she's 19, 20. And she's been my baby. I didn't take her out of the orphanage. They have a good life there. But she's my baby. I send money. I send pocket money. I was at her graduation. And I felt honored to be in the pictures. So in my own way, yes. And then the children that I offer scholarships to. My pupil population, it's an elementary school, is about 200. And out of that, I have over 50 on scholarships. I have people who also, I have partners who also help us with the scholarships. Loads and loads of partners. Very good people whose names I will not mention. I have a retired Rear Admiral of the Navy and his wife. Constantly, they've helped. And there's this chief in Igbo land, Chief, what's his name now? Ignatius Aguowo. He's very well known for humanitarian work. He's also with us. He has 10 of our children that he's offering scholarships, and a host of other people who give scholarships. In my way, that's how I'm helping. Professor Omigbodun is helping in her way. We will get together. Desola, she's Mrs. Okay, I'll remember. She's married now, though, and she also has a school And I also know that she has a bunch of children that she's giving scholarships to. You know.
As we round off this discourse, you have written a book.
Yes.
We need to read your book.
Yes.
These are men of history.
Yes.
Do you think Nigerians are reading enough to read about the life of this man?
No. No. And you know, the generation we are now, many of them were not alive 59 years ago when these incidents happened. They don't know it. They don't know about it. I get somewhere sometimes at Ademulegun, it doesn't ring a bell. Even 60-year-olds. A 60-year-old was just 1 year old when this happened. It can't ring a bell. So only, even a 70-year-old was what, 10? It can't ring a bell. So we're gradually losing the generation that would know this history. Yes, which is why Nigerians need to read. Read more so that they know history. They know about the past so that it can help us chant a better future for this country.
Thank you for writing this book.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I recommend this book to you. The Brigadier's Daughter, written by Solape Ademulegun. It's a story of Samuel Ademulegun. It's a story about the coup. It is a story of orphans. It is the story of family. It is the story of the Nigerian crisis. It's also a story of the future. To learn from history is to protect the future. I hope we are learning. Solape Ademulegun, thank you for featuring on State Affairs.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Ahmed Mondo Pilo, thank you for watching.